Well, Heart of a Warrior is actually a book that was written to help men discover their identity and how God sees them and how they get to live what we would call their capital L, life. And as I have gone through it, and as many men have gone through it, the question I asked right away was, hey, we need to make something like this for students. And actually I know the author, and the author looks at me and says, hey, that's a really good idea. You should do that, Frank. And so actually for the last 3 years, there's been this process of, making this available for students. And I think especially for students, it's important because, the question all the time is, do I have what it takes, or who am I? And Heart of a Warrior is an identity journey to see yourself as God sees you, as a beloved son, and to also be aware of the things that might take you out of being able to discover what that looks like. And so there's this tension that we live in because there's a beautiful message and a beautiful identity that God has for us, and when we get to live that out, but at the same time, knowing what we're up against is really, really important, because the world, if we give it too much attention, it really decides for us how we think, feel, and act, and that takes us away from knowing God's full love and full grace.
Heart of a Warrior to me is more of a class where I get to experience things by doing them versus other classes, it's just like a lecture.
The most important thing that young men can learn from Heart of a Warrior is identity. You have to begin with who am I and whose am I. I can learn how to do, the great thing about Heart of a Warrior is the utilization of in class and out of class, all the activities, but I think it needs to boil down to, and what is taught in the classes, even despite all the craziness of the activities and the failures that you find during those activities and the victories, it's honing you in on who you are. And I think the most important thing is realizing their identity in Christ as a son of God and what that truly means. Because we all grew up in different homes. We all grew up in all sorts of different scenarios. And a lot of times we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. A home can appear that it's amazing, but there could be lots of trauma behind that door. And in that, I think what we realize is whose we are, who we are is so important, because that grounds us in coming together and being able to share as common humanity in a fallen world of being able to trust in the Lord.
Why backpacking? So we do a unique approach to the class. It's experiential, because I think students learn best by just experience and going through challenges and using those challenges as a platform to teach out of. But the class kind of crescendos with a backpacking experience. And so it's a great opportunity just to get into nature, just to kind of live in community and hopefully authentic. We still don't have anything really distracting us when we're in that experience. And there's just something about, I think, connecting with God in nature that just allows us to step into some pretty rich opportunities to growth. And so every time we've ever done the backpacking experience, it's always a really rich and memorable experience.
Something that stood out to me in the backpacking experience was probably the first day on Indian Staircase, because it was me, Drew, Tommy, Asa, and Micah. And me, Tommy, and Drew, and Asa, we knew what Indian Staircase was, and we knew kind of how to conquer it. But then we had Micah, and it was his first time, and he had no idea what to he thought we were just going on a day hike, nothing uphill, nothing crazy. But it was probably helping Micah up the Indian Staircase, and our packs were heavy because it was the first day, and it was the amount of teamwork that it took to go up the mountain and then to get up there and see the view was amazing.
In this case, the backpacking trip was amazing. So we take a number of students backpacking our Heart of the Warrior class. It's a challenge by choice, so whoever wants to come can come. We're not forcing anybody. And so I was fortunate enough to be invited on that trip, and I've got one son in class. So I think that trip set itself up perfectly for not only starting with the preparation phase, but also during the trip, being able to conserve food enough, conserve water, because we didn't know where the water was coming from next. So just the small challenges there, with the safety of not being out in the complete middle of nowhere and having leadership available, was just an amazing time to see each of us walk through those challenges.